What's up guys, welcome back. This is Anime Crossover. You'll be watching What If Naruto Was in Bleach with 6 Eyes, Part 10. Now, let's begin. Seriitii, Gotei 13. In the Seriitii, the atmosphere was notably somber, with heightened tension permeating the environment. In the expansive plaza where the operation occurred, the captains of the 12th and 4th divisions were present, alongside the captain commander, Yamamoto, who stood observing the damaged gate and attentively listening to the reports. Despite the gravity of the situation, Yamamoto remained completely unperturbed. In the event of a worst-case scenario involving leaked coordinates, any hollows that might dare to enter would be swiftly dealt with, reduced to ash without hesitation. What troubled him, however, was the possibility that he may have lost 2 captain-level fighters along with a vice-captain. The Gotei 13 is experiencing a continuous decline in strength. It was a discouraging sight for him. Although there were no significant threats such as Yoruichi or Ikamikadomo in contemporary times, the world remained fraught with dangers. Risks that cannot be eliminated without adequate strength. The Gotei 13 was established to embody justice. However, justice lacking the requisite strength to support it amounts to mere empty rhetoric. Nevertheless, there was one observation he had made: it appears that neither of you is particularly concerned. Despite the probable loss of significant subordinates, such as Unohana or Mayuri, none of them displayed any signs of concern. He did not find it surprising coming from Mayuri. Yamamoto was confident that even if the entire Seriitii were engaged in a significant conflict, he would remain indifferent and focus instead on his upcoming experiment. Unohana, despite her seemingly indifferent demeanor and unsettling interests, was a compassionate captain who would have been deeply affected by the loss of even a minor subordinate. Upon hearing Yamamoto's words, Unohana narrowed her eyes slightly. It would be unwise for her to be concerned about Naruto. Ultimately, she was fully aware of his ability to teleport at will. Upon receiving the report from the militia regarding his willingness to sacrifice himself without hesitation and the acknowledgement of Naruto as a man deserving of respect, exhibiting an extraordinary level of loyalty towards the Seriitii, she found it challenging to suppress a laugh. He has successfully identified an opportunity. Although she was unaware of his motivations, he had been seeking a means to leave the Soul Society without incurring the label of a traitor, in order to discover the world beyond. Nonetheless, there were certain aspects of this situation that raised concerns. The occurrence of such a significant number of hollows attacking solely due to the activation of a gate seems implausible. There appeared to be an underlying issue. Prior to engaging in a discussion about Naruto, it is essential to detain all individuals who have passed through the gate for examination. Yamamoto was perceptive enough to recognize that she was subtly attempting to shift the topic of conversation. However, he did not address her regarding it. Ultimately, her suggestion was entirely reasonable. It is evident that this situation deviates from the norm. Reflecting on Kaname Tozen, he cleared his throat and adjusted his thoughts. It is evident that this situation is far from normal. 5th Division. Was it wise? Gazing out the window, Jin maintained a contemplative demeanor. Next to him sat an individual who appeared to be a standard member of the 5th Division. He posed the question while maintaining direct eye contact with the individual seated behind the desk in the office. Aizen, meticulously managing his paperwork, adjusted his glasses and focused his attention on the individual who had addressed him. Upon entering the room, one would observe an unremarkable middle-aged man exhibiting a relatively subdued ryatsu. In Aizen's perspective, the individual who spoke to him was a tall, dark-skinned man adorned with dreadlocks and a prominent set of goggles. The individual was attired in the standard Shinigami uniform, complemented by a white cloak bearing the number 9th on his back. Kaname Tozen serves as the current captain of the 9th Division and is recognized as the second collaborator of Aizen. Would you mind repeating your question? I was considering whether your decision was truly wise. The most recent significant incident occurred just 60 years ago. Given our recent actions and the loss of 2 captains-level fighters, it is no longer feasible for the Gotei 13 to overlook the situation. Certainly. They are astute enough to recognize any deceitful behavior. However, what is the significance of it? Could the serious, kind, and well-regarded Captain Aizen be considered a potential suspect? At this question, Kaname remained silent, while Jin, who had been quiet until that moment, let out a chuckle. It was certainly the case. Aizen's current reputation is undeniably impeccable. Regardless of whether his illusions were considered, Aizen would be the least likely individual to be suspected. Following a brief moment of laughter, Jin commenced walking, displaying his characteristic enigmatic smile. It appears there may be a misunderstanding on your part. Do you genuinely believe that this mission emerged without any prior indication? He raised his hand and began to count on his fingers. What are your thoughts on how the location of the fallen clan, which had been missing for 1,000 years, was suddenly discovered? What factors contributed to the Central 46 reaching a unanimous decision in such a short time frame, a process that typically spans years? What was the rationale behind selecting only 3 out divisions for this mission? Despite his blindness and inability to perceive Jin's actions, Kanami comprehended precisely what Jin was suggesting. Was all of this included in the plan? Aizen offered a noncommittal smile. All elements were, in fact, integral to his strategy. He discovered the location of the fallen clan several decades ago during his travels through Garganta. He played a crucial role in assisting them in comprehending the functionality of the blanks and the potential applications they could explore. From their perspective, this understanding likely emerged as an unexpected realization. At that time, he opted to keep them as a concealed weapon that could cause disruption in the Siriiti when required. However, given that Naruto demonstrated a significant threat, he resolved to eliminate that option and utilize it to eliminate Naruto. Simultaneously, this enabled him to eliminate another formidable and devoted captain. It was an efficient approach that achieved multiple objectives simultaneously. Aizen had indeed considered the slight possibility of Naruto's survival and potential return. At that point, it would still hold no significance. He had left no traces whatsoever. As long as he remained in the shadows, eliminating Naruto was merely a matter of time. Nonetheless, Naruto Uzumaki, should you successfully navigate this challenge, I will be compelled to assign you a danger rating equivalent to that of Kasuke Urahara and Shinji Hirako. I am quite frustrated. What was the reason for encountering so many hollows during my journey? In the vast expanse of Garganta, a woman with dark skin donned a fitted outfit that accentuated her figure as she moved forward, expressing her frustration amidst the crackling lightning that surrounded her. It was, of course, Yoruichi Shihoin. Upon entering Garganta, she anticipated a lengthy and uneventful journey to her destination. However, the experience proved to be quite the opposite. Garganta, typically characterized by its tranquility and lack of activity, was instead populated by a diverse array of hollows. Throughout her journey, she had been compelled to purify numerous hollows, losing track after reaching 100. What was intended to be a straightforward and uncomplicated mission transformed into a significant task. Fortunately, although she had experienced some decline in her skills, the adversaries she encountered were merely Ajuchas or Jillians. There is no cause for concern. As she opted to take a break, she unexpectedly sensed a slight tremor in the space before a crack emerged. A portal emerged, its hue of black deeper than that of Garganta, positioned not far from her. From the group, 3 individuals emerged. Notably, one woman donned the uniform of the healing department, carrying an unconscious soy fawn over her shoulder as if she were a sack of potatoes, while assisting a silver-haired man as they exited through the gate. Yoruichi promptly identified the silver-haired man as the young individual she encountered approximately 5 years ago. She did not recognize the voluptuous black-haired woman, yet she sensed that the Ryatsu of this individual bore an unsettling resemblance to that of Mayuri. Did that unusual individual have a child? Upon observing the individual positioned on the opposite side of the gate, a brief silence ensued as all parties involved recognized the somewhat uncomfortable nature of the situation. Everyone except for Naruto, I understand your thoughts. It may appear that this situation resembles a kidnapping, wouldn't you agree? Indeed, it would not be incorrect to hold that belief. In this situation, he remained unflinching and chose to deliver a joke. Ultimately, Yoruichi could only regard the self-satisfied expression of that man and let out a sigh. I feel a strong urge to confront him.
Arthur's note. I believe I have understood the key aspect of Aizen. Developing strategic plans that consistently enhance the protagonist's strength in various ways. Indeed, he is unaware that his plan significantly benefited Naruto. In canon, he inflicted a wound on Isshin, which initiated a series of events leading to Ichigo's birth. Deceived Rukia, bringing the Hogyoku into proximity with Chad and Orihime, empowering them. Attempting to eliminate Rukia resulted in Ichigo acquiring Bankai. Developed the Visored, resulting in their victory over the Espada. Eliminated the Sweeper in the Dangai, enabling Isshin to train Ichigo in the Dangai effectively, which contributed to Aizen's defeat. Aizen's intelligence is such that he ultimately outsmarted himself. Returning to a few moments prior. Once the hollows in the vicinity were eliminated, Soi Fan required a brief moment to recover from the shock she had experienced. She directed her focus toward the injured Naruto and advanced a step forward with a menacing demeanor. What just occurred? Why did you fail to report the possession of such a Bankai? She called out in a strained voice. The shock was, for her, simply overwhelming. Previously, when Soi Fan became aware of Naruto's ability to manipulate reishi, she experienced surprise but did not exhibit significant curiosity. Ultimately, she, like most captains, had encountered numerous Quincy's and understood the limitations of their abilities. The primary motivation for Shinigamis to eliminate the majority of Quincy's was their persistent pursuit of hollows. When a Shinigami eliminated a hollow, that hollow was purified and returned to the cycle. However, when a Quincy performed this action, the hollow was entirely eradicated, thereby disrupting the cycle. However, the actions taken by Naruto, the mere thought of it sent shivers down her spine. Coughing slightly, Naruto, assisted by Nemu, approached Soi Fan and inquired with a playful smile. What is the rationale for having this? Why? Soi Fan appeared astonished, as though contemplating the rationale behind his inquiry into such a fundamental matter. It is well understood that any Bankai capable of influencing the operations of Soul Society must be documented and prohibited. The Bankai represented a pinnacle of intellectual achievement. Everyone who successfully attained this level has had their name recorded in the annals of Soul Society's history. However, even within this esteemed group of exceptional individuals, there were consistently some outliers. Individuals whose Bankai transcended conventional understanding and were prohibited from utilization. One notable example was Captain Commander Yamamoto. She was unaware of the full extent of the power bestowed upon him by his Bankai. The passive effect of his Bankai was sufficient to instill fear in anyone. Ultimately, it produced a temperature similar to that of the sun's surface. When utilized in the mortal realm, his Bankai possessed the capability to annihilate all life on Earth, with repercussions extending to several other planets as well. Another instance of a restricted Bankai is Shinji Hiriko, whose Bankai influenced the fundamental notions of allies and enemies. The impact appeared definitive, rendering him a formidable presence on any battlefield. However, the effects were also widespread. Consequently, he was unable to utilize his Bankai in the presence of his allies. However, even those two were insignificant in comparison to what she had witnessed from Naruto's Bankai. Ultimately, if her deductions were accurate, Naruto could be considered the adversary of all reishi-based life forms, and Shinigamis would fall within that classification. She now comprehended the reasoning behind Naruto's request for her not to attempt to take his life. She may have been able to resist with ease at this moment, yet she recognized that this Bankai was still in an incomplete state. What will happen after another 10 years? 10 years? At that point, would he not possess the capability to eliminate all life in Seirei at his discretion? It is evident that Soi Fan was inevitably compelled to exhibit a certain level of lethal intent. The circumstances were ideal. Despite her own injuries and fatigue, she recognized that Naruto was in a more difficult situation. He was also presently very close. At this distance, eliminating him would be straightforward. Soi Fan dismissed the notion that a counterfeit vice captain such as Nemu could hinder her, even for the briefest moment. Nevertheless, please remain calm. He provided assistance to you. You also made a commitment to ensure his safety. Please remember to honor your obligations and fulfill your commitments.
Soi Fan has consistently demonstrated unwavering loyalty to the Seirei. However, within her heart, her allegiance to a particular individual was even stronger. As a result, despite her willingness to sacrifice herself for the Seirei, she would still be reluctant to inflict harm on someone she held dear. Particularly considering that this individual had recently saved her life. She endeavored to perceive matters from a more optimistic perspective. Given Naruto's capabilities, hollows would pose no significant threat. He has the potential to ascend to the position of Captain Commander of the Garganta 13. However, she recognized that this was merely a product of her wishful thinking. The members of Central 46 exhibited a high level of paranoia. The senior officials of the Central 46 found it difficult to rest, fully aware of the presence of an individual possessing such formidable power. She had observed firsthand the extent of the harassment faced by Zaraki Kenpachi. The central authority prohibited Captain Yamamoto from instructing him in Zenjutsu. She took a deep breath, striving to compose herself and quiet her internal conflicts before proceeding. For the time being, it is essential that we focus on identifying a path back. Her injuries continue to cause significant pain, and the volume of blood she lost is quite serious. She was not in a position to address a matter of this nature at the moment. Oh! Naruto experienced a sense of surprise internally. Despite the blurriness of his vision caused by the blood, he did not overlook the moment a chilling killing intent radiated from her. However, this sensation dissipated as quickly as it emerged. It was evident that she had chosen not to engage him in confrontation. She appears to be an individual who would make a valuable friend. Despite having numerous countermeasures in place, he was pleased with his current status, allowing him to avoid unnecessary exertion. Regrettably, this was insufficient. At this moment, I find myself contemplating the implications of my forthcoming actions. Contemplating. Before Soifan could inquire about his meaning, Naruto, now just a few steps away from her, positioned his index fingers together as he murmured, "Domain expansion infinite void." Soifan sensed an imminent threat and attempted to react, but her exhaustion resulted in a delayed response. The outcome was prompt. Her mind became overwhelmed due to the influx of an extensive amount of information. Assist her in getting up. Despite her surprised demeanor, Nimue complied with the instructions and carried Soifan on her shoulder. Naruto had exercised caution in his approach, ensuring that she would remain incapacitated for only a brief period. It appears that we will be classified as missing. Naruto displayed a smile. It had been quite some time since he experienced such freedom. With a gesture, a portal of shadow materialized and enveloped the three individuals. It was time to proceed into the Dangai. I trust that there will be no further unexpected developments. Yoruichi observed the self-satisfied expression of the men and let out a sigh. I am extremely frustrated with him. She was genuinely perplexed by how certain individuals could effortlessly provoke others. Simultaneously, despite her relaxed appearance, she had already engaged her muscles. Despite the fact that one of the three opponents was unconscious and another was wounded, Yoruichi was not the type to underestimate anyone. Although Naruto was merely a student 5 years prior, she had already witnessed some of his capabilities during that period. Given his ability to navigate Garganta, he was at least comparable to a vice captain. Could you explain the presence of an unconscious woman on his shoulder? Despite acknowledging Soifan, Yoruichi chose to feign ignorance. She remained acutely aware of her status as a fugitive. She had no intention of harming any Shinigami, nor did she desire for her location to be monitored. Are you questioning my statement regarding the abduction? Naruto displayed a perplexed expression, deeply affected, as if her disbelief was the most sorrowful experience imaginable. This is not genuine. With determination, she contemplated her next steps. It was clearly the most prudent choice to escape and proceed with her mission. However, despite everything appearing to be in order, she had some concerns regarding Soifan. However, if she delayed too much and Soifan regained consciousness, the circumstances would become complicated. Should I restrain them initially? At that moment, I would advise against that course of action. Her gaze met Naruto's. He wore a smirk, as though anticipating her next move. Do you think you have the capability to prevail over me? Her eyes narrowed with a menacing intensity at the provocation. Despite her lack of recent practice, Yoruichi remained a former captain and was acknowledged as the fastest in the Godiai 13. Her reservations did not indicate a fear of collision. It appears that Miss Fugitive possesses a notable temperament, or should I refer to you as Princess Yoruichi Shihoin? Yoruichi and Nimue's eyes widened in response to Naruto's statement. For Nimue, despite being aware of various fugitives, there was essentially a lack of information regarding Yoruichi herself. The Shihoin family, recognized as one of the 4 great families, certainly commands respect. Issuing an arrest warrant for the leader of that clan represented the extent of their actions. Some individuals have speculated that one reason the Central 46 did not prompt the Godiai 13 to apprehend the fugitives, aside from their captain or vice-captain status, was the presence of Yoruichi among them. Ultimately, even if they apprehended her, it was not within their authority to mandate her execution. Such actions would likely lead to a civil conflict. What led you to that conclusion? The surprise on Yoruichi's face was fleeting, disappearing in an instant. Her mental resilience was too strong for such matters to genuinely disturb her. She exhibited a notable level of curiosity. It is advisable to hold the girl accountable. Naruto chuckled as he gestured towards the unconscious Soifan. You might be surprised by the number of posters of you displayed in various quarters of the second division. I am confident that everyone there is familiar with your appearance. Yoruichi let out a slight groan. She recognized the loyalty that Soifan held towards her. This was one of the reasons she did not contact Soifan when she escaped. Ultimately, Soifan had a promising future in the Siriidii, and she did not want to hinder her progress. As she contemplated this, she inwardly exhaled a sigh of relief, thinking, it appears he did not recognize me. Receiving recognition as Yoruichi posed no challenges. He could not determine her location based solely on that information. This was, in fact, their second meeting rather than the first. Although that particular instance involved her in the role of a cat. If Naruto were to acknowledge that, he would be capable of identifying their general location, which would pose a significant challenge. That is the thought she ought to be considering at this moment. Noting the fleeting sense of relief that appeared in Yoruichi's eyes, Naruto made an effort to suppress his inclination to laugh. Despite the distinct aura surrounding her, Naruto found it easy to identify the connection between her and the cat, thanks to his eyes. Either the cat had been one of her Shikigami or at least a similar entity that existed here, or she had possessed it. Certainly, there was also the possibility that she was the cat. This one appeared rather unconventional. Ultimately, he had not encountered any literature indicating that Shinigami possessed the ability of polymorphism. While it could be feasible if she were not entirely a Shinigami. Upon first encountering the captain of the 7th Division, Naruto felt a strong curiosity regarding the mysteries concealed behind the mask. Even without X-ray vision, he could tell just by watching the energy flow that Sajin Komamura was definitely not your average Shinigami. He was more like a wolfman. Even though he hadn't come across any clear information, he at least knew there were some hidden clans of spiritual beings that weren't Shinigami. You know, this really isn't a big deal right now. After that, Naruto and Yoruichi had a quick chat about what was going on. So, even though they kept the reason for being in Garganta under wraps, they did manage to sort out the air situation and made it clear that there was no need for a fight. Yoruichi figured out that Soifan was safe, so she decided to head out. She felt a bit hurt that Naruto didn't step in to stop her, but at the same time, she was relieved to dodge what could have turned into a frustrating situation. As she watched her walk away, Nimue, who had been quiet until that moment, spoke up softly. Did it go okay? It's hard to believe that, no matter what was going on, they just let a fugitive slip away without even making an effort to stop her. If this gets out, those two are probably going to be in a lot of trouble. She didn't really care, but she definitely didn't want Naruto to go through any consequences. Hey, you know what? Why don't we just check in with our captain about it? Hey, you're awake, right? Nimue was a bit taken aback when she suddenly felt Soifan move on her shoulder. As she set her down, she noticed Soifan opening her eyes and giving a puzzled look toward where Yoruichi had just gone. When did you realize I was awake? What made you think she just left without a second thought? Even though Naruto replied with a question, it was pretty clear what he meant with his words. Yoruichi left without a fuss because she was aware that Soifan was awake. A bunch of emotions flickered in Soifan's eyes, but it was just a quick moment. She shifted her gaze to Naruto, and all that was there was anger in her eyes. Hey, why did you decide to let me live? If Naruto had taken her out, nobody would have been able to spill his secrets. This was such a great opportunity. Honestly, I didn't really want to kill you. So, why should I take you out right now when I could do it whenever I feel like it? A sly smile crept onto his face. He didn't have a single worry about Soifan. He didn't just knock her out. He had also put a failsafe in her body. If you decide to tattle on me, just know that you'll go boom. And turn into a real piece of art. Nimue was really starting to wonder if Naruto was the bad guy after all. Could you repeat that? If you try to tattle on me, you're going to blow up. Are you trying to threaten me? Soifan narrowed her eyes and asked this. Wait, a threat? Nope. Only second-rate villains throw around threats. I'm just sharing the facts here. Feel free to use the information I shared however you like. Naruto was really serious. Threatening a captain like Soifan was pretty pointless, and there weren't many things Naruto disliked more than doing something that didn't really matter. The tension between the two kept building, with one sporting a serious look while the other flashed a relaxed smile. Ultimately, Soifan's eyes lost their sparkle as she inquired, "So, you really never trusted me, huh?" She really trusted him, enough to send all her subordinates away and stick around with him to face what seemed like a sure death. She believed that they were friends and shared a bond of companionship. It felt like it was just her imagination the whole time. "I feel like I've made a really silly mistake." "Oh. But I really do trust you. Are you serious right now?" "If that's the case, then you've got a pretty strange way of demonstrating your trust. I really trust and believe in you, just like I mentioned before. The Soifan I know is a fair and devoted Shinigami, always ready to give her all for the Soul Society. I bet that even if Yoruichi herself came after the Soul Society, you'd stand up to her, no matter how much it hurt your heart. I'm doing this for a specific reason." A soft smile spread across his face as he let out a devilish whisper. "Later on, you can always say you had no choice and were feeling pressured, no matter what goes down." Naruto really valued friendship, love, and all that good stuff, but what he valued even more was having a proper understanding. It's best not to ask for more than they can manage. It's important not to put all the burden on them. Help them push beyond their boundaries. This is why, even though Boruto had the potential to one day be his equal, he had never really taken the time to guide him before Kawaki showed up. Before Kawaki showed up, Boruto's way of thinking really held back his talent. As a dad in Hogake, he had to handle a variety of students, each with their own unique skills and mindsets. Not recognizing one student's potential ended up squandering his talent. Thinking too highly of another student could really lead to some serious consequences. Yeah, the Shinigami world was pretty harsh, that's for sure. Every day, Shinigami are out there, battling hollows and facing danger head-on. Even though this world was way better than his last one in almost every way, there was one thing they could never top. That sounds really harsh. In Naruto's eyes, hollows were like adorable kids when you think about the pain and misery that curses brought. From the very beginning, Naruto picked up the habit of not fully trusting anyone. It's a good idea to have a backup plan when you need it. Make sure you know what kind of information you can share. He felt comfortable sharing his skills with Unohana, but when it came to his past, he held back. He saw Momo and Toshiro as siblings he could trust, but he never opened up about his worries to them. He felt comfortable sharing his secrets with Nimue, but he always kept her in his line of sight. When it comes to Soifan, he really trusted her, enough to turn his back on her. But he also understood that her loyalty to the Soul Society was rock solid and wouldn't waver. In that kind of situation, threats didn't really mean anything. He really had to find a way to handle things just right so she could have an outlet. When he took her out, he mixed a bit of his own reishi into her body. Right now, it feels like that reishi has wrapped itself around her heart, just like a chain. If you make a vow and set some rules around it, breaking that vow could lead to some consequences. He developed this skill by drawing inspiration from the heavenly restriction. Sure thing, Nimue was also feeling the impact of a heaven's vow. In her situation, the consequence was just fainting and being out cold until he got to her. After giving Soifan a quick rundown of the situation, he was pretty taken aback when she just shrugged it off and started checking herself out. "You don't look surprised or worried at all." "So, back when I was training to join the personal guard of the Shihoin family, all the kids had to go through this intense process where they were injected with a poison. The catch? If any of us failed and got caught, it would be game over. It was the same kind of treatment when I took on the role of a guard. I only got rid of it after I became captain. I'm pretty accustomed to not being in control of my own life." Soifan's tone while sharing her past was pretty straightforward, but Naruto could sense the distance she felt from him. In her eyes, he was simply another jailer. So, if this were a dating sim, her favorability used to be around 60, but now it's dropped to somewhere between 10 and 20, which totally caught Naruto off guard. He was fully prepared for her opinion to take a turn for the worse. Maybe she has some tendencies. It was definitely something to think about. So, even though she was on the shorter side, Soifan really was a beautiful woman. He wouldn't be opposed to spending a night with her. "You're such a pervert," Takamikazuchi said. I'm not a pervert. I'm a guy who appreciates the finer things in life. A true gentleman, if you ask me. I might just be 5 years old, but remember, I've got all your memories and knowledge, Takamikazuchi replied. Haha, no worries about the little things. Soifan finally felt satisfied with what she saw, but she still frowned. She couldn't actually see inside her body, but after really concentrating, she could kind of sense a strange energy moving around her heart. So, he really wasn't lying. Even though she confirmed the bomb was real, Soifan didn't seem all that concerned. First off, she had already made up her mind not to share his power. This seal actually ended up being a big help for her. All she could think was, this isn't on me, it's on him. Hey there. How's it going? Meanwhile, Yoruichi was moving forward with a frustrated look on her face. Things just weren't going smoothly. She knew that Soifan was set to head into the Dangai for an extermination mission, thanks to the intel Tesai had shared from the Kido Corps. Still, she just couldn't wrap her head around why someone like her was in such a state. Can you believe it? On top of everything else, she wasn't even supposed to reach out to them in the first place. She was on a mission to sneak in, check out Dangai, see what was going on, and if she could, grab a few blanks for Kasuke to take a look at. It was supposed to be easy, but who would have guessed I'd run into another Shinigami who can travel between dimensions? Well, aside from the whole forbidden thing about learning space-time Kido, it turns out that only a handful of Shinigami actually had the talent for it in the first place. As far back as she could recall, Kasuke was the only one who could do that. But, based on what she had seen not too long ago, it was obvious that Naruto could also move through dimensions, and he was doing it at a much higher level. I'm really curious about how long he'll stick around at Godai 13. This guy and Kasuke were pretty alike, and that's why she figured they were the type who didn't have any real taboos. There are some really dangerous people out there who just do their own thing and seem to exist in a world of their own. She was pretty convinced that Naruto would either join the Royal Guard or eventually leave the Godai 13, one way or another. Well, it's not like it really affects me. I'm thinking about what I should do next. After thinking it over for a bit, she finally made up her mind to just follow them from a distance. She wasn't sure how far his understanding went, but honestly, it didn't really matter. She kind of got the vibe of the type of guy he was. Someone who enjoys watching people interact, almost like a game of chess, all while wearing a charming smile. She thought this type of guy was really interesting. Garganta. So, what's next? Soifan stared into the dark void, her expression a bit gloomy as she pondered what their next move should be. Just having Yoruichi around made her feel a bit uneasy. She had so many questions she wanted to throw out there. So, what actually went down that day? Why did she leave her behind? So, what went down during those decades? Yoruichi. It seems like your view might be a bit skewed, kind of like what's happening with Yoruichi, right? It's funny how you feel all this frustration when she's not there, but the moment she shows up, you're ready to do whatever she needs. It seems like there's just no in-between with you. Yoruichi's the one stopping you. She's definitely the one causing the issues here. Soifan Zanpakuto spoke up. Suzumabaki's frustrated cry echoed in her heart. What do you mean by that? Suzumabachi shouted, for God's sake. Soifan, you've got a bomb in your heart, you're facing a serious threat from a powerful Shinigami, you might even be thought of as dead in the Godai 13, and yet all that's on your mind is Yoruichi. Hey, let's go. Is your mind feeling overwhelmed? Come on, stop being such a simp. Inside her mind, Suzumabachi was practically screaming. The current situation isn't the worst we've seen, but it's definitely looking pretty bleak. Instead of focusing on solving the issue they were facing, her partner was caught up in being a fangirl. If she had a heart, she was pretty sure it would have given out by now. She was absolutely furious. Soifan seemed a bit embarrassed, which was nice to see. She realized she had kind of lost herself a bit. Still, she just couldn't bring herself to say sorry. Humph. No need to thank me. I get it, you wouldn't do it even if it was the end of the world. So, the situation isn't too bad right now. Well, at least that charming guy over there doesn't seem to be checking you out, which is pretty typical since your style isn't exactly on point, so your virtue is safe. Well, I suppose there are some perks to being a bit lame. Suzumabachi mentioned. Soifan clenched her teeth. She was well aware that Suzumabachi never held back and always enjoyed throwing insults her way. She couldn't help but feel a bit wistful. You know, it's pretty common for a Zanpakuto spirit to have a personality that's pretty similar to their user, or at least somewhat close. He could be a bit of a rogue, but I really don't think he'd use me for something like that. If he really wanted to, he could have done it while I was out cold. Soifan wasn't really bothered by the idea of Naruto trying to sexually abuse her. Even though she didn't have much experience as a female assassin, she had learned all the important skills to use her charms when needed. Plus, she was ready for the possibility of being captured by enemies and not being able to take herself out of the equation. So, he raised the question that Suzumabachi asked. Why did he hold on to you? You know, back in the day, he could have easily talked you into leaving with the other Shinigamis while he took care of the hollows on his own. He wouldn't even have to show you his Bankai like that. It sounds like he really needed you to stick around, specifically. You got it. So, I'm wondering, what's going to happen to me when he doesn't need me anymore? Absolutely. If he takes you out now, other than that vice captain, no one will have a clue about what went down with you. He can totally whip up a beautiful story about you making a big sacrifice or something along those lines. No matter how I look at it, Suzumabachi said that killing you is better than keeping you alive. I mean, you know. So, if you've figured out all those deductions, it sounds like you've got a plan in place. So, you've got a plan in place, don't you? Soifan asked. Nope. No way. I just wanted to let you know how tough your situation is. Hey, just a heads up, but you know, life has its ups and downs, and we all have to face the end at some point. No lie. It was awesome getting to know you. When they got there, Suzumabachi quickly severed the connection, leaving Soifan feeling confused. If Naruto could catch the chat between Soifan and Suzumabachi, he'd probably be cracking up. Right now, he was really concentrating on finding a node that would help him get into Dangai. So, Naruto decided to jump into Dangai, and he's been cooking up a bunch of plans for it. Opening a Senkaman from Soul Society or Earth was definitely the easiest way to go in without needing a hell butterfly. But honestly, that was super risky and just plain foolish. Being in the time currents of Dangai or hanging out next to the sweeper was pretty much a death wish. The odds were just that high. This is why we had to make our way from Garganta to Dangai and then to the Valley of Screams. Do you think I should still check out the Valley of Screams? That was the mission we were given. Finding the exact valley where the targets were located would be quite a challenge with just the three of them. They'd really have to hit the jackpot to find them. He'd prefer to concentrate on Dangai if it comes down to it. So the Valleys of Souls come about through the coalitions of blanks, huh? It might be fun to check it out. He thought it would be a good idea to check out the Valleys of Scream once he wrapped up his business. If he didn't find it after 3 tries, he'd just head back. He didn't really care about those exiled nobles, you know. You know, I've been thinking maybe I should figure out a way to let Nanao know that I'm still around. He suddenly made a face at the thought. Nanao was already dealing with some trauma from her clan's curse. If she found out that he died just a few days after they were together, he knew she would be heartbroken. He could definitely head back right away, but if he stepped into the Siriiti, there was a good chance he'd get caught. The most important thing was, I'm looking for someone who has the experience of a captain to join me. After thinking it over for a bit, he figured he wouldn't stick around in Dangai for more than a week. Usually, he'd only be considered missing in action after 2 weeks had passed. So, he could spend a week in Dangai, maybe 3 to 5 days in the Valleys of Screams, and then head back. Once he got those fixed coordinates, he could return whenever he wanted. He kept thinking it over as he moved forward until, we're here. Nimue and Soifan glanced around at what he said, but all they found was the same endless void stretching out before them. For sure, the way they saw the world was totally different from how Naruto did. While everything around them seemed like nothingness, Naruto focused and noticed strings of energy all connected to one another. So, some of those strings came together to create nodes. Those were the things Naruto aimed for. Since he wasn't sure of the coordinates, he couldn't use Shadow to teleport to Dangai, but he could still get there with this other method. Naruto really tuned in, using all his senses to feel the nodes around him. Gradually, everything around him started to slow down, and the colors faded away, leaving behind a black and white world where it felt like time had come to a standstill. He started running through a ton of calculations in his head. For most people, the amount of information would probably feel like way too much to handle. One of the reasons the Six Eyes needed to master Limitless was definitely because it gave them a big boost in calculation power. He had no idea how much time had passed, maybe just a few minutes or a couple of hours, but by the time he was done, his back was completely soaked with sweat. "Hey, how long have I been out? I don't think it'll take more than a couple of hours." Nemu replied in a calm manner as Soi Fan watched from the side. He was taken aback that she didn't make a move. Actually, he had a few unpleasant surprises lined up if she decided to make a move. That was such a bummer. "So, are you really going to open a gate to your destination in Dangai?" Soi Fan frowned. It seemed like even the folks in the scientific research department would have to team up in medium-sized groups for quite a few days before they could pull it off. Honestly, even Kasuke Urahara would have to take a few days to get ready before he could whip up a fully functional gate. Even though she couldn't stand that guy, she had to give credit where it was due. Was the most talented person she had ever come across. Naruto just brushed off Soi Fan's question, took a deep breath, and waved his hand dismissively. Right away, the reishi in the area started to gather and form at a particular spot. At last, an oval-shaped gate popped up right in front of the amazed Soi Fan and the smiling Naruto. Up until now, there was only one Shinigami who could open gates to and from Garganta all on their own, without needing any extra help from companions or machines. So, now there are two. Dangai. As Naruto walked in with Nemu and Soi Fan trailing behind, he felt a slight shiver run down his spine at the scene before him. From a regular point of view, you could think of Garganta as a huge, open field, while Dangai feels more like a never-ending tunnel. The tunnel's walls looked like a line of dark clouds. This place definitely looked pretty normal. For Naruto, though, this place felt more like a huge death trap. The cloud walls definitely weren't harmless. Koryu were these really dangerous traps that could take down any spiritual life forms. If someone comes into contact with it without being properly prepared, they'll find themselves completely unable to move right away. Sure, Naruto was just like that too. If any part of his body got stuck, he'd have to cut it off right away. Otherwise, it would be game over for him. He'd be stuck there until the Kotatsu showed up to send him back to the past, but with all that distortion, his body would just be completely torn apart and vanish into thin air. "So, Dangai was what you were aiming for all along, huh?" Soi Fan, who had been quiet up to that point, finally decided to speak up. She had a really keen eye for details. If that weren't the case, she wouldn't be in the business of being an assassin and a spy. That's why she realized that Naruto didn't go into Dangai just to finish the mission. It was actually Dangai that he was after. She totally got why he needed her to follow him. You gotta be at captain level to handle the current. Got it. No prize, though. Naruto just shrugged and didn't bother denying Soi Fan's guess. He wasn't really shocked that she nailed it. At this point, it was pretty clear, right? "Hey Naruto, have you ever wondered why no Shinigami ever thought about using the Dangai for that? Is it because of the Kotatsu?" "That's one of the reasons." Soi Fan, looking a bit puzzled, attempted to clarify what was going on. First off, the only way to put a stop to the Koryu was by channeling a captain's Ryatsu or using some kind of special tool. If you do that, you'll end up saving a ton of time. But here's where the problem was. What is the duration for which the torrent can be halted? Historically, certain captains attempted to halt the flow, achieving a maximum duration of approximately 1,000 hours in Dangai time, which translates to about 30 minutes in the normal world. The situation with the instruments was considerably more challenging, as halting the flow for even 10 minutes in a typical environment would prove to be quite difficult. The consequence was that the captain would be rendered incapable of combat for approximately 6 days. In the interim, the Kotatsu appears on a weekly basis. It indicates that it can be utilized only once per week. It will take approximately 1.5 months. It is conceivable that the number of captains could be increased. How many individuals would be prepared to exhaust themselves and place themselves in a position of risk without any compensation? Even if all the captains were eager to collaborate with you, ultimately, after 1 year in the real world, you would have only accumulated approximately 44 years of training. Nemu attentively listened without interruption. In her role as vice captain of the 12th Division and as the direct assistant to Mayuri, she possessed a comprehensive understanding of this issue. the matter extended beyond mere combat. A number of scientists aimed to leverage the flow to enhance the duration of time available to them. Ultimately, the project was discontinued due to the excessive maintenance costs and the potential for fatal errors. Soifan, on the other hand, continued without interruption. Ultimately, this is a matter of commitment. There exists a more fundamental issue. While Shinigami require time to master and adapt to certain skills, the passage of time does not determine our strength. Upon attaining a particular level, the concept of time loses its significance. Shinigami cannot expand without limits, after all. Naruto acknowledged that if the development of a Shinigami were represented graphically, it would reveal an unstable trajectory over time, requiring a specific catalyst that leads to a significant surge in strength. A typical Shinigami has the potential to transform into a master upon awakening a formidable Zanpakuto. The same applied to Bankai. If a Shinigami lacks talent, even with hundreds or thousands of years at their disposal, the outcome would remain unchanged. One could contend that it significantly decreased the time required to master certain skills. Time held no significance for Shinigami. For instance, Unohana's strength was not significantly greater than that of her previous self during the establishment of the Soul Society. Indeed, based on her statements, it appears that she has become weaker instead. This represented the inherent boundary. A factor that remains unmatched, establishing the extent of your potential, rather than the duration of your efforts. This exemplified the nature of the world we inhabited. Soifan concluded her explanations and observed Naruto's expression with keen interest. She articulated all of this to observe the expression of disappointment as he came to the realization that his master plan was, in fact, a failure. She was confident that, as a young Shinigami, Naruto had been captivated by the concept of Dangai and believed that its lack of use was solely due to legal restrictions. Throughout this time, observing his confident and haughty demeanor had significantly irritated her. The current situation she found herself in amplified this feeling. Ultimately, even if she remained composed despite the presence of a bomb within her body, the awareness that her life was not entirely her own was quite unsettling. Regrettably, she was destined to experience disappointment. Ultimately, I am already aware of that information. Are you aware? Hello. Did you truly believe I would proceed without a comprehensive strategy in place? I might have confidence in my abilities, but I am not lacking in intelligence. He was certainly aware. How could he enter this place without contemplating why it has never been fully utilized? Ultimately, the risks and expenses associated with utilizing Dangai significantly surpassed the potential benefits. However, Naruto remained indifferent. He did not intend to utilize Dangai as a means to expedite his training process. He required a visit to Dangai to experience the altered flow of time and ascertain what insights he could derive from it. He anticipated that he would not face disappointment. He directed his inquiry towards Soifan. Could you assist me, please? Soifan, who felt disheartened by the realization that she would not witness a downcast Naruto, inclined her head in response to his inquiry. Why do you not choose to issue a threat towards me? I have previously communicated that I do not intend to pose any threats to you. In addition to requesting your discretion regarding my secrets, I will not resort to extreme measures whenever I need to inquire about something. You have the option to decline any request I may make. Naruto understood better than anyone that blackmail and threats could be considered a sophisticated form of manipulation. He was willing to utilize any of them, provided they were applied appropriately to the suitable individual. The primary consideration was to maintain the integrity of the bottom line of the individual being threatened. For instance, despite his insistence that she keep his secret, she did not perceive any malicious intent towards Soul Society. Consequently, she chose not to resist, determining that sacrificing her life for this matter was not a prudent decision. What would happen if he requested her to betray Soul Society? He was quite certain that she would take her own life without delay. Individuals who were acquired through unconventional methods were deemed unreliable. Let us proceed with an agreement. I am willing to assist you, however, I require that you remove that bomb in return. Provide me with a duration of 40 years. I will remove my reishi in you by that time. Soifan recognized the implication in his words. Naruto was reluctant to reveal his Bankai, as doing so would likely result in his being sent to the Mago Nest. You are confident that after 40 years, no one will pose a threat to you? Naruto responded with a confident smile. That, I do not know. However, I am confident that after 40 years, I will have attained a level of expertise that few individuals could rival. Soifan believed he was speaking metaphorically. She was unclear about the type of Naruto he was pursuing. Naruto understood that Limitless, in this context, was not particularly remarkable. However, it was primarily due to Limitless being constrained by his delicate human form. At this moment, whether considering his physical capabilities or his speed of calculation, he is unmatched compared to his former self. Are you not concerned about the possibility of me abruptly withdrawing my energy and leaving you ensnared in the current? Mutual trust is essential. I have confidence that you would not engage in such behavior. However, above all else, I have confidence in my own abilities. The meaning was unequivocal. Even with his complete dedication to training, he maintained confidence in his ability to handle any challenges she might present. Indeed, quite satisfactory. What steps should I take? Following a prolonged silence, Soifan ultimately conceded. She was uncertain whether her impending decision was the correct choice or a misstep. She would proceed one step at a time. With a composed demeanor, Naruto's expression remained steady as he sensed an individual passing through the gate he had deliberately left ajar. How could he allow another captain level to slip away when it was so crucial for him at this moment? Arthur's note: it's pretty straightforward, but just to give you an example, if you've seen or played Steins Gate, you'll get what I mean about the consequences of time traveling incorrectly. Picture that, but instead of some green goo, there's just emptiness. For instance, Ishin could pause the flow for a whopping 2,000 hours, which is almost 3 months, while just 1 hour passes in the real world. So, there's a chance that this explanation isn't found in canon. It's just my own take on Bleach. Canon only mentioned that it was forbidden by Kotatsu and Central 46. But I feel like it's mostly because Shinigami don't really need time to power up. They definitely need some time to get the hang of those skills. One example would be Toshiro, Rukia, and Renji. Toshiro joined the academy 5 years after Momo, Renji, and the others did. So, they both graduated together, but while they were still vice-captains, Toshiro had already become a captain and had his Bankai. Another example would be child Zaraki going up against Unohana. When he was a kid, Zaraki went toe-to-toe with Unohana, who was a Kenpachi at the time, and he didn't even use his Shurikai. He only lost because, deep down, he kind of held back on purpose. So, when it comes to examples, Ichigo really stands out as the best one. Haha, can you believe it? In just 2 years, that guy got to a level that took others hundreds or even thousands of years to achieve. What's really frustrating is that it hasn't even been 2 years since he went 17 months without power. In just a year, Ichigo went from being human level to being able to destroy galaxies and maybe even reach universal level. Taking a seat and closing his eyes, Naruto initiated a methodical process to diminish all his senses, retaining only the minimal awareness required to respond to potential threats. Simultaneously, even outside of Bankai mode, Kogo was capable of operating within a certain margin to ensure adequate protection, allowing for sufficient time for him to regain consciousness should any situation arise. Upon activating his Shurikai, Naruto commenced an observation of the surroundings within a 10-meter radius, while simultaneously accessing the inner world of Kengo. Upon observing the current state, a smile appeared on his face as he realized he had emerged victorious in the bet. Sitting on the ground, Soifan observed Naruto as he maintained a quiet meditation pose. In her hands were strings that linked her to the walls and halted the flow of the surge. This technique, known as Kaikyo Kotai, enables an individual to temporarily halt the surging flow, thereby allowing others to benefit from time dilation. The cost associated with that was that the individual halting time was unable to move and could solely utilize his Ryatsu to sustain the technique. Soifan was a highly capable Shinigami and assessed that she could halt the Dangai for approximately 1,500 hours. This indicates that she would be incapacitated for a duration of 62 days and 12 hours, and upon conclusion, not a single hour would have elapsed. This resembles a form of punitive challenge. Despite her strength, remaining stationary without nourishment for 2 months was not a significant issue. Remaining stationary would not be advisable. It would be particularly unpleasant. During moments like this, she appreciated the training she had undergone. Ultimately, opposition to torture and starvation was essential. The elevated death rate was not surprising. She understood that the training had become less intense since Yoruichi assumed leadership of the Shihoin family, yet it remained quite severe. Soifan's thoughts drifted to Yoruichi as she subtly turned her head to glance at the brown-skinned woman standing a short distance away, her demeanor reflecting a sense of melancholy. Despite their proximity, an uncomfortable silence lingered between them, as both were uncertain about how to initiate a conversation. Initially, this was the reason she had pretended to remain unconscious during their earlier encounter in Garganta. Yoruichi's mood appears to be at its lowest point. She not only did not succeed in the mission, but her failure was so significant that it was quite embarrassing. Despite the years without training potentially leading to a decline in her skills, it is surprising that a novice Shinigami was able to pick up her trail. Indeed, even seasoned members of the secret force would not have been capable of this. The evidence indicated that Soifan did not. For Naruto to achieve such success effortlessly, she had to acknowledge that he was truly a multifaceted genius. Given her familiarity with Kasuke's ability to achieve the seemingly impossible, she quickly adapted to the situation at hand. Nonetheless, she possessed the same understanding of Dangai and questioned his motivations for such actions. I will remain and observe him closely. Inner world. What is Limitless? Limitless can be described as a form of space manipulation in its most fundamental and straightforward manner. Limitless represented the ability to transform the abstract notion of infinity into a tangible reality. In mathematics, regardless of the number of times a number is divided, it will never be reduced to zero. Instead, they will be left with fractional units so minuscule that they would become imperceptible to the naked eye. The Limitless actualizes this concept, causing any attempt to traverse the infinitely divided space to decelerate to the extent of seemingly coming to a complete halt. In addition to its existing capabilities, Limitless has the potential to introduce the concept of negative distance and make the divergence of infinity a tangible reality. Limitless can be described as a force that transformed the impossible into reality. To summarize, Limitless is not credible. Seated on the throne, Naruto carefully combed Kogo's hair while offering an explanation, a wry smile gracing his face. I had not previously considered this during my lifetime, but it appears that my ancestor was indeed a formidable figure. For him to develop a technique of that nature. Given my extensive experience with Limitless over the years, I should have found it easier to recreate the program. I have often contemplated why I lost Limitless, yet Rokugan remained intact. This has consistently been a source of concern for me. As he gazed up at the sky, his wry smile transformed into a confident grin. The truth has always been present. I have never experienced a loss with Limitless. I was unable to access it due to the flawed concepts it presented in this context. The previous occasion he accessed Kogo's inner world, it presented as an endless white void featuring a singular, distinctive throne. At present, the world appears to be divided into two, as an additional void seems to expand in the distance. A somber one. This undoubtedly represents the inner world of Naruto. The realm that Naruto had previously been unable to access appears to be gradually merging with the world of Kogo, resulting in a unified existence. It became clear to him that he had never lost Limitless when he gained the ability to utilize Infinite Void. A domain expansion represents the manifestation of one's inner world into the realm of reality. The pinnacle of a maleficent technique. However, how could he perceive the peak without a foundation supporting it? This was the moment Naruto comprehended the underlying issues. Although this world and his prior one appeared identical, the fundamental laws that governed it were entirely distinct, yet simultaneously strikingly analogous. In this realm, individuals have the ability to harness Ryuryoku and become exorcists, similar to how, in a previous context, individuals could utilize cursed energy or chakra to become sorcerers or shinobis. In this realm, Shinigamis and Hollows are entities that exist on a spiritual plane and remain imperceptible to humans unless they possess a specific level of Ryuryoku. Similarly, in his former world, humans were unable to perceive curses unless they had cursed energy or chakra. The primary distinction in appearance between this world and the other lies in the variation of energy. However, there was another existence that transformed everything. The existence of such realms has led to the coexistence of planes of reality, including Soul Society and Garganta, alongside the human world. The primary reason for the initial inability to manifest Limitless was this. His mind struggled to accurately assess and achieve Limitless due to a deficiency in various frames of reference. His ability to utilize Infinite Void, albeit to a limited extent, stemmed from his experiences in the human world, which provided him with an additional frame of reference beyond that of Soul Society. Calculations could not be performed while unknown variables were present. Consequently, he needed to convert those unknown variables into comprehensible ones. Still, this world presents significant challenges. He contemplated the nature of the Soul King and the creation of such a universe. In an unfamiliar location, a being lacking its 4 limbs floated quietly while observing the universe with its all-seeing eyes. Beside him stood a man clad in white, sporting a black beard monk who invokes the realm's name, the one responsible for naming all entities within Soul Society. Ho wore a frown. A sense of apprehension enveloped his thoughts as he perceived that an improbable event was unfolding. Turning his head, he opened his mouth, intending to inquire about the situation, but ultimately, he closed his mouth and sighed, recognizing that he would have already received an answer if that individual had chosen to share it. What is destined to occur will occur. With a deep breath, he resumed his calligraphy, a practice he had consistently maintained. Within the Dangai tunnel, a heavy and arduous breath echoed as beads of sweat fell to the ground. What is the duration that has elapsed? Kneeling on the ground, her arms still linked to the surging flow through the special string that transferred her energy, Soifan struggled to raise her head to observe Naruto, but her blurry vision made this task exceedingly difficult. Approximately 2 months. For almost 2 months, Soifan remained in the same position, without any movement, nourishment, or rest. Her reserves of energy were consistently diminishing. It would be an understatement to say that she is currently experiencing significant discomfort. The sensation of gradually losing strength was not one she could value. In a sense, it constituted a unique form of distress. Fortunately, despite having minimal Riryoku remaining, she was still able to effectively manage the situation. However, with each passing second, she sensed her strength diminishing further. I acknowledge that I can be quite determined. She had the option to release her grip at any time, yet her pride, coupled with Yoruichi's proximity, compelled her to dismiss that notion. She aimed to maintain a composed demeanor in the presence of her idol. Soifan aimed to demonstrate to Yoruichi that she had significantly enhanced her strength over the past few decades and might have even attained a comparable level. Affirmative. I dedicated significant effort. I have developed my own specialized techniques. If I dedicate an additional 20 or 30 years to refining this skill, I am confident that I will exceed her capabilities. Within the tunnel, despite the presence of 3 women, there was a complete absence of conversation among them. Nimue may have started to articulate her desires and emotions, but this was solely in the presence of Naruto. In the presence of others, she remained quiet and appeared somewhat somber. She was simply seated, quietly observing Naruto. Her eyes remained almost completely still. Wow. Unsettling. It appears that she is indeed connected to Mayuri. Yoruichi, having just completed a set of exercises, observed Nimue thoughtfully. Similar to Soifan, Yoruichi had undergone extensive training to remain motionless in ambush for extended periods, potentially for days or even months, all for the purpose of eliminating a single target. Despite her vibrant personality, the current situation did not pose a significant challenge for her. As Naruto utilized the Dangai feature to gain a power-up, Yoruichi opted to follow suit. In her situation, it was primarily a form of rehabilitation. As she engaged in warm-up exercises with the intention of gradually restoring her previous reflexes. Although the results were average, she had demonstrated a slight improvement compared to her initial state upon entering Dangai, which she considered satisfactory. Yoruichi believes that the best way for a Shinigami to train is through direct combat. It's really only in combat that you get to put everything you've learned into action and see how it all comes together in a real situation. It was clear that to achieve Shirkai and Bankai, there had to be a showdown between the Shinigami and the Sword Spirit. Sure, during the training, she kept a close eye on Soifan's condition and was prepared to step in at any time. Soifan was in that state mainly because she was losing her Riryoku, which is her source of energy. Shinigamis are pretty complex creatures. Weak souls didn't need food to get by. Their Riryoku was so weak that it was practically non-existent. But once they got to a certain point, they had to eat to keep going. So, once they hit a certain level of Riryoku, like around vice captain level, eating turned into more of a habit than something they really needed to do. After checking that Soifan was okay and not in any danger, she focused on what had caused all of this. Wow, that's a real beast. Whenever she glanced his way, those thoughts just popped into her mind. It's been 2 months. It had only been a couple of months. For a Shinigami, that time was totally pointless. There's just not enough to pick up even a basic spell. During those 2 months, the changes in Naruto were really surprising. It honestly seemed like he had grown up a bit. He still had that boyish charm, but there was definitely a more mature vibe about him now. Also, his gorgeous silver-white hair had grown past his shoulders and was almost touching the end of his back. But honestly, if the changes just ended there, she wouldn't be shocked at all. His power, she felt a cold sweat trickling down her back. She used to be confident that she had a good shot at beating him, but now she wasn't so sure. Even now, as she stood in front of him, she found it tough to gauge his Ryatsu. No matter how much she thought about it, she just couldn't wrap her head around how someone could experience such a drastic change and boost in power in such a short period. It was totally mind-blowing. I'm really curious about what he's up to. In his Zanpakuto inner world, Naruto couldn't help but smile wryly as he glanced at the translucent second throne sitting in the shadowy part of the realm. Just as I suspected, it's still not done. Even though the fusion had gotten to a pretty high level, it had been stuck for a while now. He didn't let any disappointment show on his face, though. In the end, what he got out of this trip was definitely worth it. He realized that staying any longer would just be a waste of time. Now that he had taken that crucial first step, what he really needed were some frames of reference. Anyway. Kogo, you're just amazing. Haha, no need to spell it out. I'm pretty sure I'm the most awesome person around. I bet you wanted to add something less than me. That's just in your dreams. They went back and forth like this for a little while. Naruto had come to understand that he felt truly relaxed only when he was chatting with Kogo. He gently stroked the head of the girl sitting on his lap, a big smile spreading across his face. He had discovered the right way to fully regain his limitless potential and had already seen some progress. What really brought him joy was what he had caught a glimpse of. Kogo's full potential is honestly a bit scary. I suppose my next stop will be the Valleys of Screams. He wasn't so sure about the valleys since they didn't seem to be formed naturally, and he thought they might not fit into the frames of reference he was looking for. But hey, it can't hurt to give it a shot. Also, if he could wrap up his mission along the way, it would give him a chance to try out his new powers. Haha. I'm so excited. With that thought in mind, he lifted his index finger, and a bright red ball of energy appeared above it, only to be extinguished by him moments later. With a big grin, he got up and set Kogo back on her throne. Looks like it's time for me to get up. He had no idea just how strong he had become, but he was definitely sure of one thing now. The Soul Society is going to be in for a surprise. The instant Naruto opened his eyes, the 3 women felt a shiver run through them as the Ryatsu surged sharply. Yoruichi was doing just fine. But for Soifan, who was completely worn out, and Nimue, just a vice-captain, the pressure they were under was just too much to handle. It felt like someone just dropped a ton of weight right on their shoulders. Luckily, Naruto didn't put any real intent behind his pressure, otherwise, things could have turned out pretty rough. Whoops. At first, he felt a bit out of sorts, but as soon as he got a grasp on the situation, he quickly managed to take charge of his pressure. Nimue let out a sigh of relief, but Soifan, already in rough shape from being drained for 2 months, ended up fainting. Right when she was about to touch down, right away, 2 people showed up beside her and offered their support. She just fainted and is feeling really exhausted. Everything's fine. Naruto scooped her up in a princess carry and checked the chain she had used to connect to the wall of Dangai, making sure to see how she was doing. Meanwhile, Yoruichi, who was just a bit late, was totally taken aback and stared at Naruto with a look of disbelief. Wait, he was faster than I was. Yoruichi was in disbelief. She had definitely gotten a bit rusty after all those years of not fighting and just living as a cat. She still thought that besides Raijin no Tenjin, who was part of the Zero Division and the best healer she knew, no one could keep up with her when it came to pure speed. Looking back on everything that went down, she was certain of it, it wasn't about speed. So, it was teleportation. She was torn between feeling relieved that he wasn't faster than her and being horrified by this outrageous revelation. Even with all the restrictions in place, quite a few Shinigami still played around with space-time techniques. Some had better luck than others, but most didn't quite make it. Even after all those years of research, there are still plenty of limits to what we can actually do with space-time Kido. Some Shinigami, like Kasuke, managed to reach a level where they could travel between dimensions, but none of them could actually teleport. If she wasn't mistaken, and what he did was actually teleportation, then he'd be the first one to pull that off since Soul Society was created. Once he made sure Soifan was okay, Naruto got up, stretched with a big grin, and started to look over his changes. As he ran his fingers through his hair, he couldn't help but think about how he must look right now. But honestly, there was really only one way to see it. Sure thing. It's hard to believe, but I think I've actually become even more handsome than I used to be. Putting his narcissistic thoughts aside, he, with his deep understanding of his own body from his healing skills and shurikai, could really sense that he had changed a lot. Shinigami can definitely age, but how they look isn't just about the years that pass. It also ties into their power level and how self-aware they are. He clenched his fist, feeling the power surge through him, and nodded in appreciation. Absolutely, Limitless is the key thing here. This was really the main reason he came here. The current Limitless was still a bit of a work in progress, but he had already wrapped up the most crucial part. He was pretty happy about this. Even though he might have gone way beyond who he used to be, Limitless was a skill that had been with him for a big part of his life. That skill really helped him climb to the top of his world. That's why he felt such a special connection to it. He was actually pretty grateful that he couldn't use Limitless right away. When he stepped into Soul Society, he still viewed himself as the strongest. With a mindset like that, Limitless might have made it easy for him to win against a lot of opponents, but eventually, he would have faced his downfall. After all, there are plenty of experts in space manipulation and some really powerful folks out there with unique skills that could, in theory, take him on. If he had Limitless from the beginning, he probably wouldn't have even thought about reaching out to his Zanpakuto. That means he would have missed out on meeting Kogo, and that would have been a real shame. So, Yoruichi, what are you in the mood for now? At that point, Yoruichi had already settled down. She had gotten pretty accustomed to witnessing amazing things done by brilliant minds, so her tolerance was definitely higher than most people's. But her curiosity was driving her crazy. It felt like an itch she just couldn't scratch, no matter how hard she tried. She had a lot of curiosity about various things. What skill did he develop during those 2 months? How did he manage to teleport? Do you think he could team up with us to take on Aizen? Back then, she was pretty hot-headed and didn't want to stick around in the Soul Society for too long. That's why she had run off after saving Kasuke and the Visored, even though she didn't really have to. If she had stuck around, with her political clout, they could have really put the pressure on Aizen until he messed up somehow. Well, another reason she took off was that she just couldn't stand the dull and stagnant vibe of Soul Society. Even though she was born a princess and became the first female head of the Shihoin clan because of her skills, she really didn't like her role at all. She had a ton of things she wanted to see and so many places she was eager to explore. But she had never quite found the courage she needed until that incident happened. As she gazed at Naruto, her eyes sparkled with excitement as she said, "I feel like having a little showdown with you." Yoruichi was definitely the type to take charge and get things done. Since she was curious, she figured she'd go ahead and satisfy that curiosity. Instead of just asking him questions, I think it would be more impactful to challenge him directly. Naruto couldn't help but smile to himself, thinking about how he could make the most of the situation at hand. What's the reason I should? So, I get nothing out of this fight with you. Yoruichi made a slight frown. She wasn't like Zaraki, who would just go all out on someone not looking for a fight. So, she asked. So, what do you think we should do? He playfully wiggled his finger at her. Let's make a bet. Are you suggesting a bet? Absolutely. If you win, you'll spill all the details you're curious about, and he'll even be at your service, ready to follow your lead. A strange expression flashed on Yoruichi's face, and in case you win. This time, Naruto did not hide his grin. If I win, then you will become my maid and listen to any of my orders. He also shrugged. Of course, I say all of my orders, but there are of course some limits. The winner cannot ask for the life of the loser and cannot make orders that go against the bottom line of the loser. Furthermore, the loser will listen to the other for only 50 years. What do you say? Yoruichi, who had been on the verge of refusing, stopped short. If there had been no limits, the choice wouldn't have been difficult. But now, it appeared to be much more reasonable. For Shinigami like them, 50 years was really not that long. Of course, she wasn't stupid. She knew that Naruto had first made an unreasonable proposal followed by one much more appetizing. It was a common tactic in negotiation. But deep down, she had the confidence to not lose. If she went all out and used her shunko, few people could beat her. If it really came down to it, she could always tap into her final form. Even though she really disliked it due to how unpredictable the technique was. That's why, sure thing. Yoruichi decided right then and there. I'm in for your bet. So, they say curiosity killed the cat, huh? Yoruichi was just about to learn this lesson the hard way. Just when the two were about to throw down, I have to disagree. I have to disagree. Right when the two were about to dive into their fight strategy. A scream of indignation made them halt. As they looked back, they noticed Soy Fan struggling to her feet, her face slick with sweat and her teeth clenched tight. Naruto Uzumaki, I can accept many things. But do not disrespect Yoruichi-sama. Naruto was a little startled before showing a weird smile. It seems like this girl is really infatuated with you. He murmured to Yoruichi, causing Soy Fan to blush and Yoruichi to cover her face in helplessness. Of course, it wasn't because of the implications in Naruto's words. She knew Soy Fan very well and she had no lesbian tendency nor had any romantic feelings toward her. It was just that Soy Fan's loyalty toward her was extremely high. It wouldn't be a mistake to say that Soy Fan basically worshipped the ground she walked on. This fact could be seen even now. Naruto had been able to somewhat restrain Soy Fan with the bomb in her heart. But now, Soy Fan completely disregarded this bomb just for Yoruichi. Such a loyal woman. It's really something special. It was kind of uncomfortable to see her blind loyalty. Naruto couldn't help but find it kind of charming too. Not many people can honestly say they really get what's going on in the hearts of those around them. Yoruichi felt completely sure that no matter what happened, even if everyone else turned their backs on her, Soy Fan would always stand by her side. It didn't matter what Yoruichi did. It was definitely something to be envied. He's never experienced anything like this before in his past life. Not even his buddies. He had a best buddy, but that buddy chose a different route. Sure, blind loyalty can lead to a lot of issues. But that doesn't change the reality of the situation. Luckily, in this world, he had Kogo by his side. He was the only one he could really trust with everything. As he thought about it, a smile spread across his face. What's your reason for objecting? Do you really not believe in Miss Yoruichi? Soy Fan went pale and quickly shook her head. She felt a bit foggy in her head from all the strain she had been through, so her usual way of speaking just wasn't there. Naruto jumped right in, saying, how about this, you can join in on the bet too. If you manage to beat me, you win, and I'll serve Yoruichi. If I win, you're on serving duty. Soy Fan was totally taken aback, and Yoruichi felt the same way. So, you really want to take on both of us at once? Yoruichi asked, sounding a bit confused. Sure thing. Why not give it a shot? It's not like I'm going to lose no matter what. Yoruichi and Soy Fan both had serious looks on their faces. They had been trained as skilled spies and assassins for as long as they could remember, learning the ins and outs of how to effectively take a life. And because of their upbringings, they saw nothing wrong with using numbers to defeat a powerful opponent. As long as the difference in Ryatsu wasn't too high. A group of soldiers could beat someone powerful. In that sense, Naruto's proposal itself didn't offend them. It was the meaning behind it. You are trying to say that you can beat both of us at the same time? Yoruichi asked, her smile fading away. It had been ages since she had experienced being put down like this. How about you give it a shot? The three of them exchanged glances until Yoruichi finally gave a nod. Sure thing. With that, she walked over to Soy Fan and said, right now, Soy Fan just can't fight. Let's wait for her. Her voice was stern and solemn. Yoruichi was many things and generally, she hated having to think too much. But that doesn't mean she was dumb. Honestly, anyone else in her shoes might have thought that Naruto was just being overly confident or didn't quite get what was going on. Yoruichi, on the other hand, didn't think so. Since she was used to staying beside a genius, she understood one truth: never judge a genius with common sense. What seems impossible for you isn't necessarily impossible for them. At first, when Naruto was just betting against her, she really thought she had a shot at winning. It wasn't that she was stronger, it was just that Naruto didn't know much about her, while she had a few thoughts about his abilities. So, it's totally possible that Naruto underestimated her skills. But hey race, the thing, Naruto totally knew what Soifan could do, and yet, he was still so confident. It was like he was either super arrogant and clueless or he actually had what it takes to come out on top. Yoruichi is leaning more towards the second possibility. Well, the simplest option would just be to skip the bet altogether. Turns out, she didn't have to fight after all. But seriously, where's the fun in that? What really draws people to betting is that exciting uncertainty of not knowing if you'll come out on top or not, plus the sweet reward if you do win. If she won, she'd gain a fantastic helper, but if she lost, it wouldn't be the end of the world. As long as he kept it within limits, she was totally open to hearing some playful requests. Sure, she really wanted to win. This is why I'm going to make the most of these 6 days. She was already aware that it would take roughly a week for Soifan to fully recover. She was thinking about using this week to chat with Soifan and smooth out their partnership once more. She wasn't ready to talk about what was going on with Aizen just yet. If she went through with it and Aizen picked up on anything off when Soifan returned, Yoruichi was pretty certain that Soifan could end up in a lot of trouble without even realizing what was going on. Hey Soifan, I think we should have a chat. What's up with you acting like this all of a sudden? Naruto turned away from the two sorting out their long-standing issues and walked over to the quiet Nimue. Hearing Kogo's question, he shrugged inwardly as he said in his heart. Now that I've found the clue for Limitless, the benefits Gotei 13 can offer me seem pretty minimal. Oh, so you're thinking about betraying them now, huh? Her voice didn't carry any judgment. She really didn't care at all about Soul Society. She already knew that Naruto had never planned to stick around in Soul Society for the long haul. She was just curious about why everyone was in such a rush. Not right now. I'm aiming to become a captain and wrap up my bet with Unohana. Once I get a few side goals done, then. Looks like it's time for me to head out. At that point, he'll definitely need a team. Ah. So this is why. Yoruichi is a top-level fighter and she has a great identity. Having her by my side will definitely make things easier for me, even if I decide to leave Soul Society. Soifan is totally head over heels for Yoruichi. It's pretty much a steal. 2 for the price of 1. Buffed. You're really not a great person, are you? Kogo chuckled for a moment, but then his expression shifted to something more serious. What about the guy who set up the trap? When that came up, Naruto's warm eyes turned cold. The enemy is definitely someone of high rank. It could be either a captain or a noble. Honestly, I don't even need to look for it. If I get Yoruichi, he'll be able to get that info easily. Wow, I'm really surprised. It seems like you put a lot of thought into this. What kind of guy do you think I am? Do you really think I placed that bet just because she was attractive? I'm a principled and kind guy. Hee, whether you are a gentleman or a thief, you know yourself. She threw out a snarky comment before hanging up, which made Naruto chuckle uncomfortably. Since Kogo knew him so well, how could he possibly keep the truth from her? Yoruichi was such a stunning and captivating woman. It's hard to imagine any straight guy not feeling a rush of excitement when they see her. Given her flexibility, Naruto found himself curious about what it might feel like. Haha. I really turned into quite the reckless guy. He wasn't to blame for that either. The Soul Society really didn't have much in the way of entertainment options. So, for those 5 years, he had to find ways to keep himself entertained in the simplest and most natural ways. The miserable smile in his heart disappeared as soon as he arrived at Nimue. Naruto was a lot of things, and he didn't really think of himself as a good person, but he still had his principles. Nimue, in her current state, was really just a child trapped in an adult's body. He had to gently help her grow and find her way, so she could eventually stand on her own 2 feet. Why do I feel like I'm raising her to be my partner? Stay tuned for more. Happy New Year.